Song I'm doing this morning has great meaning to me. Did this song in Columbus when I was playing in some different groups, but there was someone who could really chew this song very, very well. He was Irish and he was a tenor, a baritone. He was for real, and he did it for real. And last year, unfortunately, I did this song at his funeral. Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. Summer's gone and all the roses falling. It's you must go, and I must bide. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. Yes, I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Daddy boy, I love you so.
Thank you, John. All right, let's listen to these words from Gospel of John, chapter 2. verses 13 through 22. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove all of them from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market." His disciples remembered that it is written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." The Jews then responded to him, "What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do this?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it up in 3 days." They replied, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you are going to raise it in 3 days?" But the temple he had spoken of was his body. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples recalled what he had said. Then they believed the scriptures and the words that he had spoken. May God add God's blessing to that reading from his holy word. Amen. So as I was reading this story of Jesus with the money changers in the temple, driving them out, I thought of another story, somebody else's story, namely St. Patrick and how he supposedly drove the snakes out of Ireland. You know that story? So I did a little digging and I found out a couple of things. First of all, when snakes first appeared on Earth, so 100 million years ago is what I read, so Ireland at that point was underwater. It was totally underwater, so of course you couldn't have snakes living there, right? Because it didn't exist, right? And then when Ireland eventually emerged out of the ocean, so first of all, it was attached to mainland Europe. And so life is good for the snakes, right? But then there came an ice age, I think like 15,000 years ago or so. Well, so Ireland then separated, but then there was an ice age, and so guess what happened to the snakes? They all turned into popsicles. Gone. So, yes, so according to the scientists, the last time Ireland was covered in ice was 15,000 years ago. So after this time, a snake could have survived in Ireland. However, what had happened was that Ireland had separated from the mainland of Europe, and it was so far that snakes couldn't get there. They couldn't swim that far. At least the land snakes couldn't swim that far. But we do still have that legend of St. Patrick driving the snakes out of Ireland, right? With his staff, he stands on top of the hill, and he's got his staff up, and all those snakes slithered into the sea. It could be, though, that this has something to do with Patrick bringing Christianity to Ireland, because in some traditions, snakes are a symbol for more ancient, sometimes we say pagan or folklore kinds of religion. Snakes have been a symbol for that. So, speaking of symbols, what's the best known symbol of Ireland? Got one right here. Yeah. It's the official national flower of Ireland. That's because St. Patrick used the shamrock to explain the Trinity to people, right? This was about the 4th century. He'd come there, he brought Christianity to Ireland. And then the story is in the 1600s, the people were very poor. But they wanted to wear something special for the feast day of St. Patrick on March 17th. So they would go out in their yards and they would pick shamrocks out of their yards and they would put them in their hats. So that's kind of cool. And then when the Irish began immigrating to the United States in the 1700s, they were mostly in the cities, and of course what's not in the cities, right? Yards, green, shamrocks. And so that's where the color green comes from. That's why we wear green on St. Patrick's Day, because they substituted the color green for their shamrocks. And so it was Joe's job to get coins for today. And this all started because she got coins that have shamrocks on them. So coins are our Lenten symbol for today. And I'm going to put them on the table. There they are. Yes. So, of course, the coins that were being exchanged in the temple that day when Jesus overturned those tables didn't have shamrocks on them. So there were basically two types of coins back then. There were Roman coins, of course, that had the picture of the emperor on them. And there were Judean coins that had no picture on them, right? So if you had traveled from what was called the Jewish diaspora, in other words, the faraway lands that were still ruled by the Roman Empire, you would have had coins with the emperor's picture on them. And so the tradition was that you brought an animal to the temple to sacrifice. And no, there were no animal rights activists back then, which is too bad. But that's what they did. They brought those animals to the temple, and they had to either, if they brought their own animal, they had to get it inspected by an inspector in the temple before they were able to bring it further into the temple to be sacrificed, or they could purchase an animal there. But, so the problem was that the animal inspectors were in cahoots with the animal sellers. There's all kinds of shady stuff going on here, right? So chances are your animal wasn't going to be accepted unless you gave like a nice bribe, like here you go, a nice bribe to these to the inspectors. So this is why the temple sacrificial system kind of reminds me of a football game or a concert in a stadium where you can't bring any bags in with you, and you can't bring your own water bottle, and you have to buy their food, and it's like 4 times as expensive. It just kind of reminded me of that. Yeah. So everything is overpriced. So this is why Jesus got angry, not because people were selling things in the temple, but because it was so unjust and so unfair to the people, right? So this made Jesus angry, so much so that he made a big scene, yelling and kicking over those tables. So the question is, does this sound like the Jesus that we know? It doesn't really. You know, we like the meek, kind of meek and mild, nice Jesus, right? But you know what? Anger is not such a bad thing, right? Is anger an agent of change? Can it be? Yeah. So anger isn't such a bad thing, and it's just a bit scary for some of us that don't like anger. Who doesn't like conflict? Raise your hand. Yeah. So 9 of us went to this thing called a workshop on the Enneagram last Saturday, and we learned about our personalities. It was really cool. I know you're all like, yeah. But it's really fun, and we learned about like how we deal with anger, right? So I love the Enneagram. I know what my type is. I know what my little quirks are. I know that I hate conflict, which can be a problem sometimes because conflict's not always bad, right? But the Enneagram is a way to help you understand yourself better. So raise your hand if you know what your Enneagram type is, if you've ever done this. Okay, people that went to the workshop know their type. But all of you other people could know your type, and it's really fun, and it can be good. Yes. So, as far as anger goes, right, there's 3 ways to express it. We can express it outwardly with our words and our actions, right, like Jesus did that day, right? Or like when I can't sleep at night, I get really angry when I can't sleep. So I get up out of bed, I go to my son isn't here, so I go to his room and I punch pillows, right? Because I don't want to wake up my husband and the dog. So I go in the other room and I punch a pillow in the middle of the night, and sometimes that gets my anger out and I can relax and go back to sleep. Sometimes, yeah. So we express it outwardly. Or we can tap it down, try to keep our anger in check, right? We can repress it, we can try to control it, right? That's hard to do sometimes, but many people work really hard at doing this, and then what happens? You get high blood pressure, you get ulcers, all that kind of stuff, right? So a third way of dealing with anger is to deny it. Oh, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It simply doesn't exist. Or so we force ourselves to believe, right? So in this story, which took place during the Passover, we see another side of Jesus. We see his zeal, his passion for justice, for those people who were being cheated. And those disciples, they get an A+ for the day because they remembered a quote from the Bible, Psalm 69, "Zeal for your house will consume me." They say, oh, that's what he's doing. He's showing zeal. So how about you and me? What are we passionate about? Where is our zeal? What consumes us, right? So I know you're thinking, I'm too old to think about this, right? That's all in my past, right? But if that's what you were thinking, so I'll ask you if you've read the book called The Gift of Years by Joan Chittister. I bet Linda's read it. Have you read it? No? It's about growing old gracefully, and it's really, really good. Really, really good book. So I'm reading it right now. So Joan Chittister is a Benedictine sister. She lives in Erie, Pennsylvania. Do you know her, Kimberly? No? No?
I was just saying, I think I should read it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. She lives in Erie, Pennsylvania, and she was born in 1936, so that makes her 87 years old. But she wrote this book when she was in her 70s, The Gift of Years, that's what it's called. And she writes, "Old age is a time to take our place among the sages of the world," right? "Bringing experience to bear as have the elders of every generation before us." And then she quotes the poet Emily Dickinson, "We turn not older with years, but newer every day." Why? Because life begins new again every day, and we must be up to it, right? Amen. Y'all look like you're not sure about that. So that passion, that zeal can be such a gift, and Faith Church is passionate about a lot of things. I know you're passionate about helping those who are hungry. That's so obvious, right? Just look how many people show up every time you go to the food bank. And a lot of people show up, and Faith Church did the work to become a Hunger Action congregation. Yay, that's wonderful. Big deal. And Faith Church keeps up with special offerings available all during the year, like Blanket Sunday. Diane's going to talk to us in just a minute about Blanket Sunday. But think how many people around the world need blankets, right? All those hundreds of people who spend the night at St. Vincent de Paul shelter, right here in Dayton. All those thousands and thousands of people in Turkey and Syria and Ukraine and many parts of Africa who are sleeping away from the home they once had. Blanket is simple yet vital hospitality to anyone who needs one. So after he got angry, the Jewish leaders asked Jesus for a sign. Jesus said, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days." Tricky answer. What is he talking about, right? He's speaking in code, right? He's talking about the 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, between the crucifixion and the resurrection. He's talking about the idea that he would be the final sacrifice. No more animals would be needed, so no more money changers and no more blood at the temple. The thing. And the system did change after the Romans destroyed the temple, right, in 70 AD, or 70 CE, however you want to say it. So that was the last time the Romans destroyed it, and after that, the temple sacrifices ended, and the Passover meal took on new importance, right, symbolic things instead of real animals. So here's our takeaway. What's our takeaway from all this? The coins on our table could represent the ways we earn and spend money, right? And how our time, talents, and treasures are allocated. For example, yesterday we had a special presbytery meeting. Was it yesterday? Yes, it was yesterday morning. Mary and I were there, and I saw Linda And I saw Don in the corner of the picture just for a minute, but then he scooted out. Anyway, we were there on Zoom at this Presbytery meeting to talk about amendments to the Constitution, the PCUSA Constitution. And one of those amendments called for required family leave of 12 weeks for all installed pastors. And it was kind of interesting. So a person who was for the amendments said how important it is to have those 12 weeks of paid family leave, especially after giving birth or if a family member needs special care. That's really important. And then somebody spoke against it, and she pointed out that it only includes installed pastors. So what about stated supply pastors or Christian educators or music directors? It excludes those people. So it was a good, good discussion. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction. So coming to an end here, what step in the right direction can you and I take this week towards how we manage our resources, right? Our time, our talents, and our treasures. I'm going to be on continuing ed this week, so I'm going to be managing my time to get some reading done for some books that I have that I've been wanting to read. One of them Norm gave to me a few months ago, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to. So that's how I'm going to manage my time this week. So time, talents, and treasures. And I am starting off the week with a gift to, where is it? Oh, it's over there. To Blanket Sunday, the Church World Service. And I do hope that you'll join me with that. Amen.